Bold, cheeky, flashy, gallus. Hello and welcome to the Gallus podcast and episode 3 of Ayrshire Untold. I am Ryan, host of the show, and this is a very special episode, as not only are we focusing on my hometown of South Ayrshire, but I will be joined by a co-host for the episode. He is the head of the Carrick History Society. He is a part-time tour guide at Culzean Castle. He is most importantly not the Stig, and he is from the town where this very episode will be focused on. He is Simon Glendinning. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Ryan.
How was your week last week? How's your week been this week?
Oh, very busy last week, because if I wasn't working, I was out in the garden because it was such a nice week last week.
It was a nice week. I remember that.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've been able to go walking quite some time.
Where did you go?
Myself and my mates have this route. It's called the Greening Route, where we leave, we meet at Maybole Road, we walk through Roselle, Belial, through the golf course, along to the beach, along the coast, up to Greening Castle, down the Downfoot to, Alloway, Downfoot, Maybole cycle route, I think it's called, or something like that. Yeah. Down that. It's a lovely 3-hour walk. Now in this episode, myself and Sam will discuss what exactly the Carrick History Society does. We will discuss various tourist attractions around Maybole, past, present, future, known and unknown. I will also ask Simon various questions about Culzean and likely reminisce to my childhood, the only time I've ever really been to Culzean. And finally, I will get Simon to lead a discussion about Maybole's history and potentially share some stories of his own, along with its, as tradition, with the Ayrshire Untold, some survey statistics from local people of Maybole, but this time with Simon to react as well as me. Enjoy!
Chapter 1. Simon.
Simon, you run the Carrick History Society. Tell us what exactly the Carrick History Society is, what it does.
Well, the Carrick History Society is a relatively new history society that I actually founded in 2021. And I founded it because the Maybole Historical Society and the Girvan Historical Societies both folded, unfortunately, because their board of directors, so to speak, were getting on. They weren't able to give as much of a commitment as they used to. So unfortunately, because their charitable regulator specifies that they have to have 8 people on their board, and people were passing away, unfortunately, they just naturally folded. So I am actually a history student as well, and on my course we are encouraged to join these historical societies. So I went to one of the meetings and I really enjoyed the Maybole Historical Society meetings.
Great.
But unfortunately I then couldn't get to the meetings because I always had a lecture on those evenings.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the one time I could go to the meeting, it happened to be the meeting where they decided that they were going to fold the society. So I was most disappointed.
Oh.
So unfortunately, it didn't exist at that time. This was in early 2021, actually. So I wasn't happy about it. So I decided, no, I think we need a new history society for this area, not just to focus on Maybole or to focus on Girvan, but to focus on the entire Carrick area, which stretches from Dunure all the way down to Ballantrae. So I started it with a Facebook page in December 2021, I think it was. Got really, really good feedback from people. Lots of people were connecting with the page and interacting with it. And I got local historian James Brown, who incidentally owns Balterson Castle, which is next to Crashregal Abbey. Yes. He's actually he's a very well-known local historian. He is our secretary.
Oh,
and
brilliant.
We have a treasurer who is Colin McNally, who works as an accountant. So who better to have as your treasurer? And between the three of us, we have progressed the society onwards, getting a grant from the North Carrick Community Benefit Company in order to do our first project. So that enabled us to buy a MacBook so that we could create a website, so that we could put on talks, do lectures, that sort of thing. And we recently launched our new website this year.
A website I love. It's brilliant. It
thank
looks
you.
amazing. When I asked you about doing the interview, you sent a link to the website, click on it, and I'm like, right, what am I expecting? Oh, this is beautiful. Scrolling through this, it's really well laid out, and the photography is amazing.
Oh, thank you. Although I should say that the website was created by a third sector company that helps with other third sector companies called Accelerate. So they built the website on our behalf, and James Brown, our secretary, worked very closely with them to come up with exactly how he wanted everything to be laid out.
Yeah.
So, and that resulted in the website you see today. I had very little input in the website creation as such, although I did sort of contribute photos and
Did
such.
you write
like.
the little blogs, or was that
No,
someone
that was
else?
James. That was James, yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So there's some things on there that I have been updating recently, like we have a news section. So the most recent one was about Crushraigle Abbey reopening. So although it's not fully reopened, you can access the grounds now, whereas for many years it was closed because they had scaffolding up, because they were doing lots of masonry work up there. So I update the news feed quite often on there. And yeah, it's good. So it's ticking over nicely. Yeah.
Brilliant. And you can find linked in the episode descriptor the link to the Carrick History Society website, and I 100% advise that you check it out, share it around, send it some love, because it's brilliant. So Simon, what exactly does the Carrick History Society do?
Well, we have 3 words that can quite easily summarise exactly what we do, and these are researching, recording and publishing. And to go into a wee bit more detail, we are trying to encourage local historians or people who are interested in the local area to do their own sort of researching. And that could be anything from researching Crushraigle Abbey, researching your own family and how they are involved in the history of Maybole, for example. But we would specifically look for subjects that have not really been looked into very much. So, for example, I was doing a little project about the Maybole boot and shoe industry, because Maybole was known for its weaving for a long time. And then when the Industrial Revolution happened, Maybole diversified and went into boot and shoe making. And no one had really done any sort of proper academic style research in that field. So I did a little bit of it and ended up writing an article for the Ayrshire Notes Journal, which was quite a good project for me. But it's something that's going to be on my list of things to do in the future, because it needs a lot of detail, and it'll involve a visit to Edinburgh to the National Archives as well to find various bits and pieces of primary sources, we call them. But local people have access to a place called the Ayrshire Archives.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that down the river?
That's right. It's down at the harbour. Only available on a Tuesday by appointment. So you would send them an email and say, I would like an appointment. I would like to look at this and that. Or do you have any sort of anything to do with Crushraigle Abbey, for example? They'll look it out for you. You arrive and then you can look through it and take notes as you want. It's a good resource that anyone's allowed to go to. You don't have to just be a local historian. You can go along and just go for a day.
To be interested, to learn stuff about your local area.
Exactly. So that's what we're encouraging people to do. The other part of it is recording, like we are doing just now. We're recording a podcast. Part of our project is going to be an oral history project where we will interview people who are maybe older, they have memories of Maybole that haven't really been spoken to before, people that have got specific interests or specific specialities in history that have all this knowledge, so we want to record it and have that in an archive for people to look at in the future.
Amazing. So what you're saying is the Carrick History Society aims to do a very much jazzed up, higher production, better version of what we're doing right now, which is real people, real stories.
Essentially, yes.
I love it.
And then the final part of what we want to do is to encourage people to write their own pieces of research, and we would then allow them to have it published on our website for our members to perhaps purchase, to read, to enjoy. And then that person that's written that article would get an amount of money from the purchase of that, and that will give them a sort of a step up so that they can then get access to the higher up academic journals. It gets their foot in the door, really.
Yeah. It's brilliant what you're doing then.
Yep.
So how is the Carrick History Society different from all of the other history societies you hear about, you see?
Well, we've recently had the COVID pandemic and that caused the lockdown, so a lot of the history societies that people know couldn't meet up in person anymore. So all of these people who perhaps didn't have a sort of basis of how the technology worked had to scramble and teach themselves how to get used to Zoom and that sort of thing. And that made us realise that the world has changed since then. A lot more things are online. So we've decided that our headquarters are going to be virtual, so they will be through this website. The other thing is, we don't want to we're not a history society where you can come along and just have a wee blether. Oh, do you remember that chip shop in Maybole? That was the best one. You know, that type of thing. A few biscuits. Yes, that sort of thing. So people can come and speak to us about that, but what we need to realise is what is important about what that person's saying. What value do they have, and what
can you do with it?
Yes, how can that help us to learn about the social history of Maybole, for example? Was everyone going to the chip shop every day? No, but it would be a special occasion. It would be like on a Friday you would go to the chip shop. That's why people have fond memories of places like that, because it only happened once a week. That type of thing. Yeah. So it's about changing what people say and getting a value from it. And also, our difference from other history societies is we are going to enable people who are maybe younger that want to get into history or learning about how to write articles, so that they can have a platform on our website and get their foot in the door and become part of the local historian collections.
As I said earlier, it's absolutely amazing what you do, and just giving the opportunity to people as well. So it's not just ran by a few board of directors, it's bringing in as many different people with as many different stories and giving them a place to share those stories.
Exactly.
Chapter 2. Maybole is attractive.
Now, to bring the discussion to Maybole itself, there's a lot of tourist attractions dotted all around Maybole, and I like to think that I've been to a fair few of them. The first one that comes to mind is the castle, and by castle I don't mean the one in the town, I mean the ruin that sits in the middle of a field just out of town.
Balterson Castle, you mean?
I wouldn't have known its name.
But well, there's Balterson Castle, which is a ruined tower house, and that sits next to Crossraguel Abbey, which is a ruined Cluniac Abbey.
Myself and my mates went to Maybole once, and we walked kind of down the path. There's a path on one side of the road.
Yeah.
And then we crossed over into the field to look at the castle, and we went over to the abbey, and we were able to get in, walk around for a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's good times.
Yeah, so Balterson Castle is more like a stately home rather than a castle, and it's actually, the ruins are owned by James Brown, who happens to be our secretary.
I said it earlier about something else, but I'm going to use the word again, convenient.
Now, he actually has got so much information related to Balterson Castle, it's unbelievable. And he's going to be doing a sort of archaeological hands-on thing at Maybole Library. I think we've agreed that it's going to be on the 15th of May, but I can't remember exactly. But there'll be various other dates in the future. So he has got access to lots of archaeological stuff related to Balterson Castle. He has been doing loads of research to do with it. And he's also an authority figure on the history of Crossraguel Abbey as well. So you see, it's good. The type of access we have.
Yeah, you know the right people.
Yes. Unfortunately, Balterson Castle isn't accessible to the public, but you can see it very, very easily from the road.
Driving past.
Mm-hmm. And it's a cracking ruin, isn't it?
We walked up and we took a selfie with it. as you do, and remarked at how similarly it looks to our castle local in Ayr, Greening.
Yeah. Incidentally, James was doing research into Mac and Nick surnames in the area, and I believe he had to go to Greening Castle to take a photo of a door lintel that proved one of his points. It had Nick something or other on it, so it's a funny connection there, isn't it?
From going to look similar to there actually being a link between the two.
A link only through the owner, which is interesting. I'm not sure if there is a historical link. Unfortunately, I don't know the history of Greening Castle very well at all.
There's a story about a guy called John Kennedy, who I believe lived or owned it for a while, many years ago, and somewhere around the middle he was decapitated.
Oh.
Or his family were. It's a great story that I don't know much about, but I just remember reading it because I was like, I'm interested. What's Greening's story? Oh, okay. And let's forget the decapitations.
Yes, well, the history of the Kennedys is very violent and bloody, and there's lots of stories related to them, which are interesting, shall we say.
Not my cup of tea. I'm not a blood man. I tell you another one of my favourite tourist attractions. This one I've actually been to twice because we went once and we enjoyed it, so we went again. It was Culzean Hill.
Oh, Culzean Hill, yes.
Genuinely, the part I loved most about it was you're in the town and you have to walk there.
Yep.
I'm all for little back street kind of farming roads. It's such a nice walk. And you get to the bottom of this thing and then you cross a field of cows. Not terrifying. You then climb up this hill, which takes it out of you. You then get to the top and you have one of the nicest views you're going to get in most places. Just all of Maybole in one way. You can see the abbey or from it, the castle. If you go far along,
yeah, you can. There's if you go over the hill that's nearby, you can see the other side, and you can see Crescraiglavie and Balterson Castle, and you can even see the sea on a clear day. Yes.
Oh, it's a miserable day we went.
But it's nice to hear someone else who appreciates Culzean Hill as much as I do, because it's actually my favourite landmark in Maybole, and I'll tell you why. It's because everywhere I've stayed, except for where I currently stay in Maybole, I could see Culzean Hill from the window, and it was always very, I don't know, it's funny, for me it's just a very comforting view. It's just something I've always liked looking at, and no one else seems to get that, although I would say that most people that stay in Maybole, it's one of their favourite walks. They'll go up there quite often, take their dog, and need to be careful when there's cows and sheep in the field, of course.
I rave about the place all the time. I was in a drive with my mother and father coming back from some place. Where was it? Port Patrick. So we're coming back from Port Patrick, and Mum was like, look at that in the distance, as she points off to this massive monument at the top of the hill. And I'm like, oh, I went up there. And she's like, what? And I'm like, it's not hard. So, car gets parked, and away we went. Back up the hill. She didn't have the best time, but she wasn't prepared for it. She was wearing the wrong kind of shoes.
Ah, yes. And it can be quite muddy if it's been very wet up there. Yeah. So do you know anything about the history of what's up on that hill? Because I do.
Now, I either do or I don't, because you're going to say what it is, and I'm going to either have a memory in my head where I'm like, yes, I remember reading that, because when I was writing a review on Maybole for ScotRail Tours, I was reading articles about it, or I'm going to say, no, that's somewhere else I'm thinking of. But I'm pretty sure I've read something about it and have no memory, because it was years ago.
So you can't remember?
No. That was a very long-winded way of me saying I can't remember.
Well, on top of that hill are the remains of an Iron Age fort. Now, an Iron Age fort, it's not quite a building as such, but it's in the Iron Age they would cut into the hill and create a fortification. And as you remember from being up on that hill, you can see for miles around, so it's a good vantage point.
Yes.
The other part is the monument that you mentioned. That is an obelisk, and that was put up there by the tenants of Sir Charles Ferguson of Kilkerran, by his tenants. He was a very beloved landlord, and when he died, the tenant farmers and so on put all the money together to create this monument to him, and that's why it's up there.
Is that the place where my papa told me the story that they had to carry it up?
Well, that might be true. Another part of my research has been, where did they get the stone from? Was it constructed in 3 pieces and then taken up the hill? I don't know, and I haven't found an article about it. You would think that there would be a grand unveiling of this thing, where dignitaries would have been invited, but I still haven't found any newspaper articles about it. So maybe anyone listening might be able to fill us in on that.
So it is, what I'm assuming, kind of like a bit of an old wives' tale. Like, people just kind of say it was carried up.
I don't know.
And no one really knows. I mean,
no one really knows.
No one that we know really knows. Again, if you know, let us know. So you're up Culzean Hill, and we're up Culzean Hill. I'm sending a message to one of my friends. I was like, we're here. And she's like, go check out the waterfalls. And we're like, right, where are they? So she sends us a video on Snapchat, using Snapchat maps with them arrows and directions drawn. Very useful. Never use that to guide someone, because it didn't work. So we continue on the path, going down all these lovely back roads. Love a back road to try and find these waterfalls. Nah, we couldn't. We struggled, but we could hear them.
Yes.
We got to the bottom of a kind of road. There's a house in front of you.
Yes.
Massive pen of cows. Is that a pen of cows? I'm going to call it a pen of cows. And you can hear the waterfalls, and we're like, where are we? Where are they?
And that's where they are, in that field with cows.
The cows were between us?
Yep.
Oh, that's fair enough. I wasn't fighting them.
In the summertime, the cows are not always there, and it is possible you just climb over the fence and get down to the waterfalls. But that's the thing, a lot of people get told about the waterfalls and they don't know where they are because they're not signposted.
Yeah.
But it's nice. It's a nice place if you can get down there. The only thing is, if it's a nice day and during the summer, it's full of teenagers, because it's like the only sort of safe-ish running water that's nearby. So yeah, but yeah, that's well worth visiting as well.
I'm gonna need to go up on a sunny day in the summer to pray there's no cows, and also go up Culzean Hill again, because I like going up Culzean Hill.
Me too.
Yeah, it's the highlight of any trip. We went to Maybole once with the sole purpose of going up it. Like, we actually planned a day around, what are we doing today? Don't know. Anywhere you want to go a walk? Do you remember that walk we went to in Maybole a few months back? Aye. Why do it? Sure. Went and done it again.
There is another hill that you can go up as well.
Interested?
It's Mockram Hill.
I've not got my pen on me, but if I had my pen on me, I'd have made a note.
Yes, so you walk out the Culzean Road, and you will be looking for a sign that points you to Mockram Loch Fishing, and you go up this tarred road, and when you get to the very top of it, you'll see a sort of forest, and there's a well sort of worn path between the trees. Go straight through there, and that's you starting the Mockram Hill walk. I believe it is taller than Culzean Hill, and it's got an even more interesting view, because you can, when you're up there, you can see Culzean Castle, you can see Turnberry, you can see what remains of the Maiden's Light Railway, the viaduct, the supports that used to hold them up. And then on the other side, you can see Crossraguel Abbey, Balterson Castle, Culzean Hill, Maybole. So it's great. And you can see the sea as well, and Aylshire Craig on a nice day.
Consider it added to the list. Waterfalls. Mockram, was it?
Mockram Hill.
Mockram Hill,
yes.
Added to my to-do list. Now, it just came to my head there briefly. Maybole to Culzean, can you walk that?
Yes.
Is there a path, or is it just kind of a
so,
route?
Well, you can see the Mockram Hill walk that I'm talking about. Instead of going all the way up the top of the road and going into the forest, you turn right and keep following that road all the way around, and it will take you to the road, the main road. So you have to cross that just the once, but you be very careful. Cross that, and you'll see a red gate. Go through there, and it will take you down to the route that takes you down to Maybole Shore, or Croy Shore as the locals call it. And there you go. You're at the beach. Just walk along the beach a wee bit, and you're at Culzean.
It's something I've always wanted to do, is go that walk.
Well, so did I, and I did it after lockdown eased, because I knew that was taking you away from the road, and it was
away
fairly
from people
safe
as well.
Yeah, and it meant that you did only need to cross the road just the once. It's a brilliant walk. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, highly recommend it. It's tough on your feet though, but
Oh, I walk everywhere. I'm fine. I look forward to that. From all of the scenic attractions, such as the castles and the hills, time to go to the more leisure-based ones. The old leisure area down the hill. There was a golf course, remember?
yeah,
There was a swimming pool.
yeah.
You told me off mic that there was tennis courts and the bowling green.
Well, the tennis courts are not there anymore. That's historically they were there, and you'll find a lot of people who talk about that part of Maybole that they remember the tennis courts. And there is a bowling green, yes, as well.
Is the golf course still there and just not used?
So the golf course is there, and there used to be a golf club, but unfortunately it very recently folded.
Yeah.
So the golf course is still there and it's still playable. There's still a clubhouse there. It's quite a nice building. There's lots of space inside for doing stuff. But yeah, it's still playable.
I played it many, many years ago. 9 holes, you do it twice. And I remember it being very hilly.
Yes. Maybole's built on a hill, so everywhere you go, there's hills.
The last one especially, I think it was it would have been 18. The 9th one was just a straight climb up a hill.
Yeah.
Like most of the other ones are little, up a corner and up a hill. That was just straight up a hill. And you're trying to push a trolley up a hill as a child. It's not easy.
No.
And speaking of my papa earlier, my gran told me a story that he was like champion, like is it a golf champion? Sure, like golf champion for a few years in Maybole's club.
Very good.
Many years ago. Aye.
Yeah, we inherited the minutes from the Maybole Golf Club, and we had them transferred to the Ayrshire archive so that they're going to be protected for people to look at in the future, because otherwise it would have just ended up in the bin. That's another part of what we're trying to do, is to save documents from being thrown out. So we would try and put them in the appropriate places. Like the Ayrshire archive has got cooled areas to make sure that pieces of paper are kept in a decent state, that sort of thing. So his name's probably in those documents somewhere.
Oh, brilliant. Thomas Chalmers.
Yeah, I'll have to have a look at I had a copy of one of the lists of the cup winners, so I'll need to have a look.
Probably as a cup winner is what you'd call it.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about that area of Maybole, that's the Memorial Park. So that's where our First and Second World War memorial for Maybole actually is. So it's in the top of the hill, right in the middle of the golf course, if you remember.
Trying to remember it, because something we do when we go to different villages, myself and my mates, is we'd find the war memorial to see it.
Yeah.
Just because there's A, nice, B, in great places.
Yeah.
But I don't think we ever got to see the Maybole one, probably because of where it is.
Yeah, so it's in that memorial park, and it's right at the top of the hill, and it's a very peaceful location for it to be situated in. It's unusual because I had a few visitors to Maybole that came to see me when I was at the library, and they said that the amount of names on it from the First World War are higher than other towns of the same size. And again, that's another thing that I need to look into as to why that is. But talking of the wars in the Second World War, I remember reading the town council minutes at the Ayrshire archive, and the government wanted the town council of Maybole to use the golf course for growing fruits and vegetables to help with the war effort. So they were telling the town council that they had to take away so much of a percentage of the golf course and dig it up and use it for planting. And the town council at the time were basically negotiating with the government to reduce that percentage so that they could still use it for golf. So it's incredible. And that started as, for me, a story. They said, they used to, they planted vegetables during the war on the golf course, and I didn't believe it for a while. And it wasn't until I read these minutes that it was in fact true, and it's incredible.
Brilliant. Well, not brilliant, but it's a great story. It's
Yes,
what it is.
yes.
Aye. Amazing.
Chapter 3 Culzean.
Simon, as well as running the Carrick History Society and working at In Time Escape Rooms, you also volunteer part-time at Culzean as a tour guide, yes?
Yes, that's right. So I am a volunteer guide at Culzean Castle on a Monday. I used to do it on a Sunday, but I've had to change my day because I have a new job this year. Yep. I personally think that Culzean is my all-time favourite place in the whole world. Now, I haven't really travelled the world very much. I haven't actually left the UK, but Culzean is my favourite place in the world, and I've known it for years. I've very fond memories of visiting the grounds when I was younger, because my gran stayed in Maidens, which is very close. You can just walk along the beach and into Culzean. So I wanted to give something back to Culzean, and what better way than to have the honour of spending one day a week talking to people about the castle and everything inside it, and getting people enthusiastic about the place. Is absolutely wonderful. I just love doing that.
Your enthusiasm, your love that you are presenting for that last minute of speech has made me all of a sudden very enthusiastic about Culzean, and I have a question.
Yes.
Culzean Castle.
Yes.
Very dramatically said. Can you give us a brief 1 minute, 2 minute tour?
Okay.
I'm going to it's almost pitching style. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Tell me everything you can cram in about Culzean that you can get away with cramming into Culzean without actually going to a tour. Go to a tour of Culzean Castle.
Okay. Well,
go.
Well, Culzean Castle used to be an L-shaped tower, very similar to what Maybole Castle is like today. And the Earl, between the years of 1777 and 1792, employed Robert Adam, this very, very famous Scottish architect, to come in and adapt the L-shaped tower into the amazing house that you see today. So the National Trust for Scotland took over the castle in 1945, and that was to save inheritance tax, I believe, from the family at the time, because it would just be very expensive to run the place. And the National Trust have done a lot of not renovations, sort of maintenance of the place. They look after it. The top floor was given to General Eisenhower as a gift for his services during the Second World War. The entire top floor. Imagine that. And he stayed there quite a few times, once when he was the president of the USA. So I'm going to give you a couple of my favourite things in the castle. So the first is in the armoury, which is the place that's got one of the largest collections of flintlock pistols in the world.
As a child, I loved that.
But what people don't not necessarily notice is on the ceiling there is a propeller, and the propeller is from the first plane that shot down a Zeppelin during the First World War. Because people don't realise there was also a blitz during the First World War, which was to do with Zeppelin balloons, and they would just simply throw bombs out of it onto the cities like Edinburgh and London. And then quickly speeding through there, when you eventually get to the staircase is Robert Adams' final masterpiece. It was an afterthought, really. It looks to visitors like the castle was built around the staircase, but in actual fact the staircase was the last part of the castle to be built. It was built in the space that was left, and it is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm not going to say much more about it because you have to go there and see it for yourself to appreciate it.
Definitely do.
Yeah. And the final part is my favourite downstairs room is the kitchen, strangely. The kitchen was taken out in 1945 because the National Trust believed that people wouldn't be interested in where servants lived or worked. And it was reinstated fairly recently, actually, into the Georgian-style kitchen that it is today. And I just love it. There's just so much that you can talk about in there. It's full of pots and pans, kitchen implements, and it's just wonderful. It really is. I could talk all day about the kitchen.
Brilliant. And if people want to hear you talk all day about the kitchen, where would they go?
They can come and visit Culzean Castle, and I'll be there on a Monday if they want to talk to me. But I would say all of my colleagues are extremely knowledgeable, and they all love to be asked questions about the castle. So go ahead and ask whatever you want to them.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I thought it would be quite good to talk about some of the conservation work that's been done at Culzean Castle since the National Trust took over it in 1945. So, as guests walk around the castle, they will be walking on what they think is the carpet in certain rooms, but these are actually eye mats, and these are mats that have had the photograph of the carpet printed onto them, and then they match up seamlessly with the carpet that's already in that room, so that the carpet underneath is protected, but the guests still get to see exactly what the carpet looks like. And this helps prolong some of the older carpets that we have in the castle. For example, in the long drawing room, there is an original carpet that was made in Agra, so that is being protected by these eye mats. Other conservation techniques that have been carried out in the castle, for example, in the round room, the carpet that's in there is actually a reproduction of the original carpet. It was made by Craigie Carpets in Irvine. The original carpet had been worn over so many years of visitors walking on top of it, and I believe there was a point where guests couldn't get to the windows of the round room to look at the view, because the original carpet was so fragile at the time. So that carpet's in there just now is actually a reproduction. Also in the round room, if people have a look up at the fantastic ceiling that's in there, they will notice that it's very colourful. But when it was put in place, it actually was put in place before Robert Adam passed away, so he didn't actually get to see what the room looked like when it was finished. And at the time, the family decided that it would be better to paint the ceiling white, as that was the fashion at the time. And so for many, many years, it was just a white ceiling with the decoration that's up there. And when the National Trust took over, they purchased a watercolour painting of that ceiling that was produced by Robert Adam, and it showed the colours that Robert Adam actually envisaged being on that ceiling. So I think it was the 70s, the National Trust put the colours on the ceiling as Robert Adam intended, and today you can go in there and see how well they match with the rest of the colours in the room. The National Trust for Scotland have done a great deal of work in Culzean Castle since they took it over in 1945, and that's why I get such pleasure being a volunteer in the castle, and I just love telling the guests all the types of things that they can see now that they maybe wouldn't have seen if the Trust hadn't taken over the castle in 1945. There's a very similar castle in Daly called Dilhwaran Castle, and it was also a Robert Adam designed building. Unfortunately, the roof was taken off that in the 70s to avoid paying tax on the property. And unfortunately, the interiors of it have just rotted away since then, and it is now just a ruin. And it would be really sad to have seen that happen with Culzean, because it is just such a marvellous building. So I am very pleased that the National Trust continue to look after such a building, and we are really lucky in Carrick to have such a place that visitors can go and enjoy.
When I think back to my childhood and my fondest memories of Culzean Castle, I always think about Pirate Day. Was it one day a year? It will never happen once that I remember. Every year we'd search for this again and again, but it never come up. It was the day myself and my cousin went to Culzean, and we did Pirate Day. You dress up as a pirate, you run about with swords and you attack other children with swords. Really wasn't safe. It was great fun. I love pirates, and everyone there loved pirates. Made so many friends, so many enemies. I was the leader of one crew, and someone else was the leader of the other crew. And us two pirates, well, we did not get along. And we had like a whole narrative and everything. That's Culzean for you, innit? Magic. Another memory that comes to mind when it comes to my time in Culzean would be a time it's myself and two of my cousins, and we went to the park. We recently got all revamped and was now wooden and castle-y. I believe it's since had another revamping. It's added the Mad Wee League Adventure course or something. I don't know. I can't quite remember. But we went and we played hide and seek for about 5 hours as my father just stood there like, when are they going to stop playing? We never did. Why would we? We were having an absolute blast. A final wee memory I have about Culzean is just going to the duck pond and feeding the ducks and swans with my gran, with my papa, with my mum, with my aunt, with my cousin, whoever I was there with. Going a walk from the car park all the way down to the duck pond and then getting ice cream. Going up to the Mad Wee Monkey House. Go to the beach maybe sometimes if it was sunny. Truly a magical place that lives in my mind with just such deep nostalgia. I like how Simon listed 3 things that he loves about the castle, 3 of his favourite things, and there and I list 3 memories that I had about Culzean. And I think that perfectly summarises Culzean as a place that you can go and you can make dozens and dozens and dozens of memories. You can have a lovely time, lovely walks, just a good time at the park, a good time with Pirate Day, all the events that go on. But you could also have a good time if you're into all of the history and the history of the castle and the area, because it is all fascinating. Culzean has so much to offer anyone of any age or interests, and I understand why Simon sees it as his favourite place. Period.
Chapter 4. Ryan as a student.
I don't know anything about Maybole's history. I know some stuff about the other places I've covered in this series, Largs and Demelaton, but I know very little about the history of Maybole. So Simon, would you mind educating me?
In the past, Maybole was well known for its weaving industry, and when the Industrial Revolution happened, weaving wasn't required as much. They had, machinery and such like that would make it a lot quicker than people would be able to do by hand. So the people of Maybole diversified and changed their skills and went into boot and shoemaking, and for a long time Maybole was world famous for its boot and shoe industry, and there was a factory continuing to produce boots and shoes until the 70s, and a local firm, Harrison and Gowdy, continued to make boots up until the late 80s, early 90s, I believe. And now, unfortunately, there is no boot and shoe industry in Maybole, and that then caused a slight downturn in the fortunes of the town, which only got worse as time went on. Maybole High Street until just last year was notorious for being extremely busy. It was the A77 that ran through the High Street, and many lorries and just a very high level of traffic used to come thundering through the town on its way to the port at Stranraer Port Patrick. And since the 1950s, people have been calling for a Maybole bypass, and last year we finally had the bypass open, which has made such a huge difference to the town. It is an absolute joy to walk down the High Street, and now that the High Street is a lot quieter, lots of people can appreciate the architecture that we have got around the town. There's also going to be a regeneration process for the High Street itself now that the streets are a bit clearer, because they couldn't do that until the bypass was here, because the High Street would be so busy with traffic and you couldn't put scaffolding up on a main road either. But now, thankfully, that's going to happen very soon, and Maybole will soon become a destination to visit again.
Chapter 5. Story time.
Staying in Maybole is probably what got me interested in history in the first place. There was a survey done in the Victorian period at Loch Spoots, which is a kind of large body of water that was later a reservoir for the town. And what they did was an archaeological survey there, and they found evidence of a crannog. Now, a crannog is a dwelling that is constructed in the middle of water, and it's well over 2,000 years old, and that proves that the area had been inhabited for people for many, many years. But there's lots of other historical buildings and ruins and such like around the town as well. We've already mentioned Crossraguel Abbey and Balterson Castle, but Maybole is also the only town that I know of in Scotland that has got 2 castles on its high street. The first one is what we call now the town hall, but that was originally the dwelling place for the Blair Whans, and it later turned into the toll booth for the town, and then it was incorporated into the town hall as it is today, and it's currently going through its a renovation to put it back into community use, and it's due to open in June or July, I believe. The other castle in the high street is Maybole Castle, and that was where the Kennedy family used to stay, and it is still owned, I believe, by the Culzean Castle's estate, but it's also currently going through a renovation at the moment, and it will be open for visitors next year. Maybole also has a ruined collegiate church at the centre of the town, and this is also an ideal place to go and visit if you're ever in Maybole. Only problem is there's currently some masonry issues with it, so hopefully it'll be open again soon. This is where the Kennedy family were buried for many, many years until they moved into Culzean Castle, and they created their own cemetery at the top, very near the visitors' entrance.
Chapter 6. What's next?
Simon, you've alluded to it throughout the show, but I'm going to give you this opportunity to explain what the next steps for the Carrick History Society are, and also what the next steps for Maybole as a general town is. What's the plans for Maybole going forward? What are they planning and doing?
So now that we have our website built, we're going to come up with a programme of talks, which will be a combination of online talks and in-person talks. We're also working together with the Maybole Regeneration and the NCCBC. There's a piece of work that I'm doing as well for a special project next year that North Carrick's going to celebrate the Bruce 750 event, which will be the 750th anniversary of the birth of Robert the Bruce, who famously many historians say was born at Turnberry Castle. We're also going to be interviewing people to take their oral histories, and so that we have a recording of the lives of people, because I think through the years people have passed away and we haven't been able to record this sort of thing, so that's going to be really helpful. And we're also trying to increase our membership for the society as well, so that we can put on more of a larger programme, maybe take people on trips to places, that sort of thing. So we're in a very interesting period in Maybole, because the Maybole bypass has recently opened. I think it's been open for a year now, and what that allowed was a new school to be built. The new school couldn't be built until the bypass was actually in the process of being built, because it would mean that the pupils would have to cross a very, very busy road. But now that the bypass is opened, the school's almost finished. It's going to open this year. It's going to include Carrick Academy, St Cuthbert's Primary, Cairn Primary and Garden Rose Primary, and all the nurseries associated with them. The swimming pool is also moving from the Memorial Park into the school as well. And what that means is where the people involved in changing things in the town are looking at increasing the amount of leisure activities that are available in the Memorial Park. So the swimming pool is going to be turned into a sort of electric bike station, a mountain bike station. They're also looking at putting a dirt track around the golf course for people to use dirt bikes. They want to also add an abseil system as well, which would just be interesting. The other thing is Maybole Town Hall is almost completed its renovation as well, and it's due to open in June. And Maybole Castle has started its renovation as well. It will be open in the springtime as well.
Chapter 7. Residents' Thoughts.
What always interests me is local people's opinions on their hometowns. So I created a survey to see what those from Maybole think of the town, and I sent it around various social medias. After about a week, I received 19 responses, and these are the findings. Much appreciated to anyone who took the time to fill in the survey. It means a lot. Anyway, people don't like living in Maybole. 58% of those who took the survey had lived in Maybole their full life. And 15% only spent their childhood in Maybole and moved out. After 42% enjoy living in Maybole. 10% are unsure if they like living in Maybole. And the remaining 45%, all in roundabout ways, don't like living there. The youngest person to respond to the survey was 16, and the oldest was 85. The average age of those taking the survey was 39, and that maths drove me mad. 19 ages added together, divided by 19, got me the number 39. I can't quite remember what the mathematical term for that kind of average is. Is it a mean? We're going to go with medium, the medium age, sure. An even split at 31% recommending people to live in Maybole and 31% definitely not recommending Maybole as a place to live. It seems like quite a polarising place, and what I noticed from the results is it wasn't just younger people didn't like it, older people liked it, younger people didn't like it. It was very even. It seems Maybole's a place that's almost determined on your life there. How it treated you, how you lived there. Some people like it, some people don't. And there's nothing that really connects the two groups aside from, well, Maybole. This is always my favourite part of the survey, the selection of people's favourite things about Maybole. I asked, what's your favourite thing about Maybole? And I had responses such as the nature, the community, the people, the castle, the countryside and the landscape, the walks, pubs. Someone said visiting their gran, which is lovely. The wee shops, the sense of community, it's quiet. And of course, someone said the road out of it. I asked the same selection of people their least favourite thing about Maybole, and they said the lack of things to do. Carrick Academy came up quite a lot. The road in, of course. The so-called high street. The disrespectful adults and children. Everything. The public transport, Neds. The lack of things to see. The lack of lighting at night. Old people knowing who everyone is. And lastly, someone's neighbours. Do you remember what I said earlier about Maybole being about your own personal experience? I picked that up quite a lot there in the dislikes. It seems people dislike Maybole for very specific personal reasons. The lack of lighting at night, old people knowing who everyone is, and someone's neighbours. Alright, Maybole. Alright. And now time for some stories from the local people. I left a section at the end of the survey blank that just said, do you have any stories you'd like to share? What do you want your lasting message to be? And I got 4 or 5. So, 85-year-old Bill McCubbin says, have many good memories, but the bypass has to be the biggest change for the better. Anonymous said, a woman on something started screaming at me and my pal because we refused to look at her scabby leg. Alan Price 48 said, had a great time last Saturday, 25th March at Cairn Primary School Open Day. So much memories. Another anonymous person left a note, a junkie punched his window and smashed it to get in because his missus locked him out. Some of the other stories aren't what I'm going to call podcast friendly, so unfortunately I have left them out, but one of them is genuinely horrific. I'll take this time to thank everyone again for submitting any responses to my survey, and a link to the results can be found in the episode descriptor. I'm now going to hand you all to Simon, who is going to give you his thoughts and his reactions to those statistics, probably given more insight than I, as he is from Maybole.
So I've got a few comments to make about the survey that you did. So you had 19 responses for the survey, and I can tell you that Maybole has got a population of over 4,000, so that's not quite 1% of the total number of people that stay in the area that you got comments from. But nevertheless, your takeaway message from the survey was that people don't like living in Maybole, and out of the 19 people that gave a response, I would say 18 of them are possibly, say 17 of them are possibly the same kinds of people that have the same negative views of the area. I see that Bill McCubbin, who happens to be my neighbour, lives across the road from me, said that the best thing about the area was the bypass happening, and I've mentioned that already in the podcast, but if you've stayed in Maybole all your life, you will notice a huge difference that having a bypass in the area really does make. As I've said, the high street is so much safer to walk down, and it's a pleasure to walk down there. Before the bypass was there, I wouldn't even have dreamed of going down there walking my dog, but now I do it quite regularly. The other thing is that people say some rather unsavoury incidents happen, but I would say that this happens in quite a few towns and villages all across Scotland, and Maybole isn't unique in this. The other thing is, I feel like I have to defend Maybole because it really is a really good place to live. It's very quiet. It's safer now that the bypass is there. There are lots of different regeneration type things that are happening. The community spirit that we've got in Maybole is excellent. And it just really is a good place to live. I think you will find that if you put things like this on Facebook, you will get a lot of negativity. And I like to be quite a positive person. So when I speak to people, I'm always very positive about all the wonderful things that are happening in the town and all the potential that's going to happen in the town. And I should say as well that Maybole has benefited from quite a lot of people who are not from Maybole that have moved in, maybe from England or elsewhere in Scotland, and they've done a great deal of work because they've realised that this is a great place to stay. Although I should say that some people who have moved in from outside of Maybole have maybe not been so helpful, but never mind. I love staying in Maybole, and I think I'm probably going to stay here for the rest of my life, so there you go. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here today and speaking to you, Ryan, and I wish you the very best for this podcast. If anyone's interested in finding more about the Carrick History Society, we've got a website, so it's carrickhistory.scot. We've also got a Facebook page, so if you search for Carrick History Society, it should pop up there. There'll be other links in the descriptor for this podcast as well, so thanks again, Ryan, for having me here, and I'll be more than happy to come along again in the future.
Chapter 8 Maybole.
And that draws a conclusion to this episode of Ayrshire Untold, and in fact this season of the show with it. If you would like to listen to the previous episodes, one on Demelton and one on Largs, then they will be linked in the descriptor, along with my Linktree page, which will allow you to follow my travel account on Instagram, ScotRail Tours. It will also allow you to check out my other podcast work with Rockpool Podcasts, mainly an episode recorded live at the Ayrshire and Arran Tourism Conference from a couple months back. Any websites referenced will also be linked in the episode descriptor. I have been Ryan Robertson. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.